Hi, this is Rudy Jones of PalmettoStateBaseball.com. Welcome to That Was the Week That Was in South Carolina College Baseball for March the 2nd through March the 8th. I provide coverage of all 33 college baseball teams in South Carolina at PalmettoStateBaseball.com. I do in-game updates on my Twitter handle, or X handle, if you will, of Palmetto Base. We have a Facebook group called Palmetto State Baseball Group. I'd like to see you join that and discuss college baseball with other baseball fans. And you can always email me at rudyjones at PalmettoStateBaseball.com to let me know what you think I need to do with my coverage to make it better. We've now played 545 games in the season so far involving state teams. We played a little bit over 1,700 last year, so roughly we're not quite a third of the way through the overall season as far as number of games to be played. But there have been some great games being played so far. On Tuesday, South Carolina got a nice win over USC Upstate. The Gamecocks were coming off the series loss to Clemson, but the bats woke up a little bit. They had 4 hits in each of the 3 games against Clemson. They got 5 in the first inning against Upstate and went on to a big win. Also on Tuesday, Winthrop got a nice win over Michigan State at Ford Field in Greenville to extend its winning streak to 8 games. Also on Wednesday, Clemson run-ruled Michigan State at Ford Field. That was a foreshadowing of what was to come for the Tigers over the weekend. And also South Carolina handed Charleston Sutter just his second loss of the season with a 4-1 game in Columbia, and it was a nice, tight, competitive game. On to the weekend. Maybe the most anticipated non-conference series was Coastal Carolina and East Carolina, and it was a dandy game. The Pirates came in, they had a lead. Coastal tied it up in the bottom of the 9th inning, and then in the bottom of the 10th, Rex Watson hit a grand slam to give the Chants a walk-off 10-6 win in the opener of the series. Then on Saturday, he did the same thing. He hit a 3-run homer in the 8th to break a tie, and the Chanticleers went on to win that game by a score of 8-1. On Sunday, would you believe it, he homered again, but unfortunately for the Chants, it wasn't enough. They were already down big when he hit his 3-run homer, and they wound up losing to East Carolina 10-4 in a game halted because of lightning and rain after 6 innings. The Pirates had actually scored 2 runs in the 7th, but the game reverted to the last complete inning. Still a series win for Coastal. They are now 9-6 on the season, and again, beating East Carolina is good. East Carolina fell to 8-7-1. That's a couple of the better mid-major programs in the country that were matching up. Watson only got 3 hits, but it was those 3 home runs that he hit to drive in 10 runs. I really wanted to give him Player of the Day honors for Palmetto State Baseball for Friday, but how do you give someone Player of the Day over a guy who pitched a perfect game? That's what Jackson Mullen of Florence Darlington Tech did on Friday in a 12-0 5-inning win over USC Salkehatchie. I just couldn't do it. I did give Watson Player of the Day for Saturday when he hit his second go-ahead home run of the series. So I feel like he still got some recognition for what was really a great weekend for him. Speaking of weekends, how about Clemson and what they did to LaSalle? They won 4 games, 3 of them by run rule, and now improved to 15-1 of the season. The Tigers have won 7 straight. Their only loss was a series opening loss to South Carolina that ended an 8-game winning streak to open the season. Clemson hit .393 for the 5 games last week. It scored 62 runs, had 17 doubles and 9 home runs in those 5 games. Jared Purify was doing a great job of setting the table. He was 10 for 19 with 2 doubles, 2 homers, 5 walks, 5 stolen bases, 12 runs scored in 5 games, and 7 RBI. He was doing exactly what he was supposed to be doing. The Tigers pitchers, they had a subpar week, if you will. They had a 2.92 staff ERA. That made their season ERA balloon from 1.80 to 1.91. That's not too bad for a subpar week. Tigers pitchers struck out 53 in 37 innings. So, it was, again, a great weekend for Clemson in that weekend. And don't forget, the Tigers sat out Aiden Kanak, their ace, because they wanted to make sure they didn't overuse him too early in the season, so it'll be fresher later in the season, getting towards postseason time. Not using your starting pitcher, your ace starting pitcher, and having a week like that, that's some pretty good stuff. Also, South Carolina had a great weekend. They swept Princeton in 3 games. There was a doubleheader on Saturday. Had to come from behind in all 3 games, as it turns out. And on Saturday, they got a go-ahead home run from Logan Sutter. Sutter had a great series against the Tigers. He was 6 for 10 with 5 runs scored, 7 RBI, and 3 home runs. He also had a double during the week. For the week, in 5 games, he was 9 for 16 with 4 homers, 6 runs scored, and 10 RBI. So the transfer from Purdue is stepping up. He's now hitting over 400 for the Gamecocks. Will Craddock's continuing to do well for the Gamecocks. The freshman from Hannah is now up over 400 as well. USC's won 5 straight games at 11-5, and I'm sure they probably feel a little bit better about themselves after having 3 pretty good offensive games this week when they really struggled to score runs in the Clemson series and for the most part before that. Also, Columbia International University has won 5 straight games. They just had a dreadful start, had tough luck, lost some close games, but they won 5 straight, including a conference sweep over Bluefield over the weekend, so they're rising in the Appalachian Athletic Conference standings. Coker won only 1 game in the series against Newberry, but they won it in 12 innings on a walk-off wild pitch. Interesting. Francis Marion, they played 4 games last week. They scored 65 runs. Yes, that's right, 65 runs in 4 games. They won all 4, oddly enough. In fact, the Patriots are doing so well on offense. They have scored 298 runs in, I believe it is 19 games. Let me look. 22 games, 298 runs in 22 games. They've only got 296 hits. They've scored more runs than they have hits in this. So the Patriots, Coach Jeff Jefferson, are doing very well. How about some of my weekly honors for this past week? Well, Clemson was named my Team of the Week. You can tell why because of some of those numbers I gave you earlier. Just really had a great week. They also, as I mentioned, hit 393. The Tigers' next game is against Georgia Southern on Tuesday at SRP Park in North Augusta. You Clemson fans in the Midlands and in the Central Savannah River area may want to get over there. It's a nice-looking ballpark. I went to it about 3 years ago. Very, very attractive, good sight lines. I enjoyed it. I think you Clemson fans will too if you like it. Also, other teams that did well last week as far as being in consideration for Team of the Week. College of Charleston won their CAA opening series with about 2-1 over Hofstra. That series was moved from Hempstead down to Charleston because of weather issues up in New York. And the Cougars, even though they batted first, they got wins in 2 of the 3 games. Stowe Rogers of College of Charleston just hit a massive home run in Sunday's game. They estimated it's 435 feet. It's on X and it's probably on YouTube too. Take a look at it. He crushed it. He's apparently a local boy. I believe they said he's from James Island. So good for him from that. I mentioned Columbia International being on a 5-game winning streak. They were another one that I considered for Team of the Week. Forest Arlington Tech has now won 9 straight games. They are a half game ahead of Gaston College in the Region 10 standings. Gaston College gets a chance to even it up with a game at USC Union on Monday. It was a game that was postponed by rain on Sunday. North Greenville 3-0. They're cruising again. They got a walk-off win in game 1. They got a walk-off win in game 2, and they had a couple of other nice wins over Mount Olive. They're tied with Francis Marion in the Conference Carolinas at 7-2. South Carolina went 5-0, considered them. Spartanburg Methodist got a Appalachian Athletic Conference Series win at Pikeville. They went 3-2 for the week. And USC Sumter is working in Region 10. They're behind FD Tech and Gaston College in the standings. The Fire Ants went 4-1 last week. Ryan Pikatowski, I hope I'm pronouncing his name right, is having a great year for the Fire Ants. He's hitting .435 through 21 games. Really doing well. He's driven in 29 runs in those 21 games. I apologize for saying that wrong. How about the team rankings through Sunday? Clemson remained number 1 in my Division I rankings. They're 15-0, 5-1 overall. They've won 7 straight. Coastal Carolina, I got them moving up from 4th to 2nd, even though they went 2-2 last week. They're at 9-6. They are on a 1-game losing streak. One reason they moved up is because of some of the other teams ahead of them had less successful weeks. South Carolina, I moved up from 5th to 3rd on a 5-game winning streak. The Gamecocks are 12-5 overall. Charleston Southern, I dropped them down from 2nd to 4th because they went 2-2 last week. They lost to South Carolina midweek in a tight game. They won 2 of 3 at Georgia at Georgia State. One of them involved a long lightning delay before they were able to finally finish that one out. But again, the Buccaneers are still doing great at 12-3, and they won their last game at Georgia State. Winthrop, I've got dropping 2 spots from 3rd to 5th. They went 1-3 last week. They're now 10-5, and have lost 3 straight games. They lost those games to Auburn. No shame there. Wofford, I have moving up 2 spots from 8th to 6th among Division I teams in the state. Terriers went 2-2 last week, including a 2-1 series win over Belmont at Belmont. They're now 10-5, and they won their last game on Sunday. College of Charleston, 3-1 last week, 7-8 overall, and moved them up from 9th to 7th. USC Upstate went 0-4 last week. They lost to South Carolina, and they gave up double-digit runs to unbeaten Texas, all 3 games of that series, and getting swept. It looked like they were all 3 going to be blowouts. Game 1 was, Game 3 was. Game 2, the Longhorns were up 11-3 going to the 9th inning, and Upstate scored 6 runs and had the tying run on base before being retired to end the game with an 11-9 loss. Still, I had the Spartans dropping down 1 spot from 7th to 8th. The Citadel, tough week for them. They got a midweek win over Georgia Southern, and in all 3 games at Kentucky, they had a lead, and unfortunately were not able to hold it up. 2 of the leads they kind of lost late in the game. The other one they were not quite as successful later on. They gave it some runs in the middle innings. But the Bulldogs lost 3 straight games, all 3 games to Kentucky. I know they're mad as Hornets because they felt like they should have won some of those games. Just some late failures to make the plays they needed to. The Bulldogs are now 5-8. They dropped down from 6th to 9th. And in 10th place, I've got Presbyterian. They were 0-4 last week. They're 2-14 overall. They've not won since opening day when they won a doubleheader over Lehigh. In NCAA Division II, there was no changes at all last week from the week before, so this is going to be the same rankings as last week. North Greenville's now 19-2. They went 3-0 last week. We've won 4 straight. Francis Marion's won 4 straight, 4-0 last week, 19-3. USC Aiken was 2-2 last week. They're 16-6 now. Had a tough loss to Columbus State on Sunday. The Pacers were down to their last strike and got a RBI single from Salvatore Lamo to tie the score in the 12th or in the 10th. In the 12th, they gave up a bases-loaded walk and a sacrifice fly from the margin of victory in a 4-2 loss. Lander stayed at number 4. They've won their last 2 games after dropping the series opener to Augusta. They're 2-2 last week and 14-8 overall. Newberry stayed at 5th at 13-8 now. They're 2-1 this past week, 2 of 3 against Coker. Anderson had a tough weekend. They got a midweek win, but then they were swept by Lincoln Memorial in the South Atlantic Conference play. The Trojans are now 14-8, but on a 3-game losing streak. In 7th place is Erskine. They were 2-2 last week. Lost a midweek game to Emmanuel, and then won 2 of 3 against Southern Wesleyan. The Flying Fleet's now 9-15 overall. Benedict had an 8-game winning streak snap when it lost the first 2 games to Edward Waters in a SIAC series over the weekend. They came back and got the last game to get finish the week 1-2. They're now 9-5. Coker, as I mentioned, had that tough series against Newberry. Went 1-2 in that one. They lost a midweek game, and they are now 5-16 overall. Just cannot quite get over the hump. Southern Wesleyan had a 2-2 week. They're now 7-15. They stayed at number 10 in my rankings. USC Beaufort is on a 7-game losing streak, and they are 0-4 last week, 4-17 for the season. Claflin, like Presbyterian, is on a 14-game losing streak. The Panthers were run-ruled 3 times by North Georgia, which is a powerful program out of Dahlonega, in Peach Belt Conference play. They were outscored 59-10 in 3 games. Among the NAI and NCCAA, or National Christian College Athletic Association teams, I have Spartanburg Methodist staying number 1. They were 3-2 last week. They're now 9-11. They won their last game at Pikeville to win that series. In second place, I have Columbia International moving past Bob Jones. As I mentioned, the Rams are on a 5-game winning streak. They're 8-18 overall after the slow start. Moved past Bob Jones, which did not play last week. The Bruins are 5-8. They play 4 games this week at least. They're trying to come back from a loss in their final game the previous week. Voorhees went 1-3 last week against Wilberforce. They're now 2-12 overall. They are stayed in 4th place. And Morris lost 3 up at Virginia State. They're now 2-10, and they remain in 5th place in my standings rankings for NAI and NCCAA. In junior colleges, Florida Star Tech, of course, stayed number 1 in my rankings. They've won 9 straight. They were 4-0 last week, 22-5 overall. USC Sumter stayed in 2nd place. They were 4-1 last week, 14-7 overall. They won their last 2 games. USC Union had a tough week. They lost a midweek game, then they lost 2 to Gaston College on Saturday. They're 1-3 for the week, 13-7 overall, still a good record. They stayed in 3rd place, but they're on a 3-game losing streak. USC Lancaster was 1-3 last week, and they are now 11-11 overall, and stayed in 4th. USC Salkehatchie dropped 4 last week. They're 3-22 overall. They've lost their last 8 games. And Denmark Tech is stayed in 6th place. They only got to play once last week. They lost that game. They're 1-8 overall. How about the vibe? How about a pulse rating, if you will, for the way teams should be feeling about themselves after this past week? Clemson, I've got to say, has been going to be feeling sky high for the way they've been playing. They've, just hitting on all cylinders, offense and defense. Again, the only area where they might be a little bit lacking is in defense. But sometimes your good pitching and offense can make up for defense. But also in tight games, sometimes that defense is going to jump back up and bite you. Coastal Carolina, I think even though they lost that game against East Carolina on Sunday, I think the Shots still have an overall good vibe. They were hanging right in there with NC State in midweek before losing that game. At 9-6, not where they'd like to be, but they're holding their own while several of their key pitchers are out recovering from problems. So, if they get through here and they don't get too down on themselves, I think they're going to be just fine. South Carolina, I think, is probably feeling as good as they have all year. Their offense finally came up together a little bit. They've been getting better pitching, maybe still not quite what they need in the SEC, but they've been getting better pitching, so that's a plus for them. USC's 12-5. They've won 5 straight games. A lot of guys are starting to hit, guys that struggled earlier in the season. Charleston Southern, I think even though they went 2-2, they're 12-3. Hey, 12-3, they still got a good shot at getting their first back-to-back winning seasons in almost 40 years. Just, take them one game at a time and go from there. Winthrop probably did not enjoy that series down at Auburn, getting beat all 3 games, got shut out in the first 2. Finally got a run in game 3, but that was it, and they lost. I'm sure they probably expected to have a little bit better offensive performance down there against Auburn. Wofford, I think, is feeling pretty good about themselves, getting 2 or 3 up at Belmont. Lost the game they lost late on a late home run. It's like in the bottom of the 6th inning of a 7-inning game. So the Terriers are up to 10-5. Southern Conference coaches didn't expect a whole lot of them, but they're winning. 10-5 so far. College of Charleston, I think getting that conference series win is helpful for them. Got some good hitting over the weekend. So I think they're looking forward to move on from here. I think their vibes are positive. Upstate probably down a little bit. That was their first ever baseball games on the west side of the Mississippi River when they went out to Texas this weekend. That was interesting. I know that the way that Upstate can hit the ball, they probably thought they'd be a little bit more competitive with the Longhorns. They did get that good performance in the 9th inning on Saturday night, but I think they're probably feeling a little bit down about themselves. But also they need to realistically realize that they're not going to play many teams that are as good as Texas. I don't think they were intimidated because they played in places like Clemson, South Carolina before. Texas place is no different from that, only just that it's not the same place they played at before. The Citadel, frustrated, not being able to hold those leads. I'm sure that Russell Triplett is trying to figure out a way to just the right combination from bullpen to get that guy in there to get that big out and just get them to roll from there. I think they're still a dangerous team. Just probably feeling a little bit down. They haven't found the right combination of relief pitching that's come through for them when it needed to. Presbyterian, really tough. I don't see a whole lot of positives from the Blue Hose right now. They've been competitive in some games, but in some other ones it's not been all that close. I just think they need something positive to happen for them, but right now it's just really tough going for them. In Division II, North Greenville, what can you say? 19-2, another conference series sweep. They're doing well. Ditto for Francis Marion, just really knocking the cover off the ball. 19-3 overall. USC Aiken probably frustrated, disappointed. They didn't get that win on Sunday against Columbus State. They had a chance, but just could not do it. And then I'm sure they felt like they gave that one away in the 12th inning with the bases loaded walk. But still, overall it's been a good season. Same thing for Lander. They lost that first game against Augusta on Friday night, but hey, they came back and won it. And in Sunday's game, they scored their 19 runs in a grand total of 3 innings. 4 in the second, 10 in the third, and 5 in the fourth, or it may have been 5, 10, 4. But again, they're hitting the ball. Oliver Zahn had 6 RBI for him on Sunday. Newberry got a conference series win on the road. That's always good. 13-8 now. I think they feel pretty good. Anderson's probably scratching their heads a little bit. Lincoln Memorial's got about the same record as Anderson, maybe not quite as good in the South Atlantic Conference, but they were able to win all 3 games. One of them was on a late comeback, too, so that also, I'm sure, didn't please the Trojans. Erskine at 2-2 got a series win, 9-15. They probably feel more positive than negative, I'd say. Benedict got a dose of reality, I guess, going up against Edward Waters. Losing 2 games, they gave up a bunch of runs in those first 2 games. They were able to outslug Edward Waters in the 3rd game of the series to avoid being swept. And you never want to get swept at home. But I think that the way they're hitting the ball, they're still going to be okay. He's going to be getting some pretty good pitching out of that to help keep them close. Coker, another team that's been frustrated, I know. Getting that walk-off win on the wild pitch was good. But, they gave up too many runs to Newberry, and they just could not get a home series win. You always want to win your conference series at home when you can. Southern Westman got a win against Erskine. I'm sure they feel pretty good about that. 2-2 for the week. Probably positive vibes. USC Beaufort, 7-game losing streak. I'd say they're probably negative vibes, of course, negative pulse. Maybe the only good thing to happen to them this past week was they were able to leave St. Augustine early because Sunday's game was called in the 8th inning because of weather, and they did not wait around to see if they could resume, call it after 8 innings. Claflin, again, much like Presbyterian, just not been able to get many things going on positively. They've been getting some good offensive numbers from some of their players, but they just don't have the pitching to be competitive in the Peach Belt Conference right now. I know the coaches are out recruiting hard. I see notes from one of their assistants on X trying to entice and encourage guys to go play in Orangeburg. I know they want to try to get some things turned around. It's a tough deal for them to compete in the Peach Belt Conference, which is a very good conference. Among the other schools, other 4-year schools, Sparkman Methodist, I think, winning 2 out of 3 up at Pikeville gave them some positive vibes. They went 1-1 in midweek. 9-11, they're wanting to get back up over 500, I know. Columbia International, after the way they started, 3-0 week and 5-0 overall, I'm sure they're just really wanting to get out there and play another game as soon as they can. Bob Jones, who knows what's going to happen. They haven't played since last Saturday. Don't play again until a Tuesday home doubleheader against Defiance at Conisty Park. I know that there's always the idea of guys getting some rest, but I know you don't want to get so much rest that you get rusty and it's almost like starting the season over again. We'll see how that goes. Fort Heath had 4 games. They've been having a lot of games get rained out, but getting some success by getting a win in the final game of the series against Wilberforce, I'm sure gave them a positive vibe on the way home. Morris, they've been getting some decent offensive numbers in some of their games, but again, they too just haven't been able to come up with the pitching to keep them close enough in some of the games. So probably a little bit of a negative vibe there. I mean, junior colleges. Florence Georgia Tech 9-0, 22-5. What can you say? I think they're feeling fine about themselves. Been getting a lot of good offensive numbers from several guys, and if you get pitches like things like perfect games from pitchers, you're going to be in pretty good shape. 7-2 in the conference right now, half game ahead of Gaston College. USC Sumter, a game back in the conference, the region, at 6-3, 14-7 overall. I think the fact they won 2 of 3 on the road at Lancaster has the Fire Ants feeling pretty good. USC Union lost their 2 games to Gaston College, played game 3 on Monday. I know they'd really like to get a win on Monday to feel a little bit better about themselves. Of course, that game's being played at the ballpark in Jonesville. USC Lancaster went 1-2 at home against USC Sumter. Again, like I mentioned earlier, you always want to try to get a win in your home series and see what you can do on the road. They weren't quite able to do that. USC Salkehatchie, again, they're struggling. 8 straight losses, 3-22 overall, probably feeling down about themselves. Denmark Tech only got to play 1 game. They only 1-8. I know that they've had a lot of games have been canceled, and they've also had to kind of piece together the schedule they've had to be able to have enough games. They've had a few that have been canceled like that. I'm sure they want to get some more games in action. Well, how about what's coming up this week? As I mentioned, there's only 1 game on Monday, Gaston College at USC Union at 2 o'clock. Tuesday, some of the games. Claflin is at Anderson at 1. Defiance is Bob Jones, like I mentioned, for a 1 o'clock doubleheader. North Greenville's at home against Trevecca Nazarene for a pair of games on Tuesday and Wednesday. Princeton stays in the state after its USC series, plays on Tuesday and Wednesday at Winthrop. Catawba's at Francis Marion in what should be a challenge to the Patriots and their high-scoring offense. Lander is at Belmont Abbey. That's a good test. Belmont Abbey's always a competitive Conference Carolinas team. Charleston Southern tries to avenge its first loss of the season when it lost to UNCW earlier when they go up to Wilmington to Brooks Field to play the Seahawks there. Newberry's at Southern Wesleyan Newberry's playing Southern Wesleyan on Wednesday. I just noticed I've got them both playing at home. I'll get this corrected, but they're playing each other, and I'll let you know where they are. USC Upstate and Wofford are playing at Fifth Third Park in Spartanburg at 6 o'clock. Good neutral site game. Ought to be a big crowd there. Nice ballpark. 2 good competitive teams. Coastal Carolina is going to try to take out its frustrations from losing to East Carolina on Sunday with a home game against Wake Forest. Good challenge, 6 o'clock game on Tuesday. Clemson and Georgia Southern, as I mentioned, are playing at SRP Park in North Augusta at 6:30 on Tuesday. South Carolina goes down to the Holy City to play the Citadel at Joe Riley Park at 7 o'clock on Tuesday. If I were the Gamecocks, I'd be leery of this one because the Bulldogs, I'm sure, are fit to be tied over the fact they've been so close but not been able to get over the hump against some pretty good teams. On Wednesday, we have Florence Georgia Tech has a home game against Fayetteville Tech. As I mentioned, Presbyterian plays the second game of a Tuesday-Wednesday series at Florida Atlantic. Princeton and Winthrop play again. USC Lancaster plays at the Francis Marion JVs for a doubleheader. That was washed out last week. College of Charleston comes up and plays Wofford at 5:30. That ought to be a nice matchup. And USC Aiken is at Lenore-Ryan in what should be another challenging game. On Thursday, ACC play begins for Clemson. Yes, they're playing on Thursday through Saturday this week. They are at home against Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech lost to Virginia Tech on Sunday in the finale of the Yellow Jackets' first ACC series. I know they do it to accommodate schools, but I kind of hate the fact that all the ACC schools don't start their conference schedule on the same weekend. I'd like to see some kind of change made to that, but maybe it's not a big deal. Maybe they don't care. On weekend series, USC Upstate has a home series against High Point. Belmont Abbey visits North Greenville. That's a dangerous one for the Trailblazers. Hey, I could have called them Mounties, so don't worry about that. Radford's at Winthrop. Flagler is at Lander. Princeton opens a series at Wofford. The Tigers are going to learn all about the South Carolina. Wonder if they'll make it to the Beacon while they're in Spartanburg. They ought to. Appalachian State has a home series against Coastal Carolina. That ought to be a good series. The Mountaineers, coached by former Lander coach Kermit Smith, are 10-5 now. They swept PC, as I mentioned earlier. Georgia Southwestern, which won 2 of 3 over at NCAA Division II #1 Tampa over the weekend, is at USC Aiken next weekend. Also, Southeastern Baptist is at Bob Jones for a series at Conisty Park. College of Charleston plays host to Stony Brook in a CAA series. UNC Asheville is at Presbyterian in Big South Conference play. And South Carolina is at Florida in a 6:30 game to open SEC play for the Gamecocks. Also, Young Harris, which has been having a great season, is at Francis Marion at 6 o'clock to open a Conference Carolina series there. Some of the junior college series starting on Saturday. We have USC Salkehatchie at Gaston College, USC Lancaster is at USC Union, and Florence Darlington Tech is at USC Sumter. You can always check out all the schedules, games for the week at PalmettoStateBaseball.com. I do updates as I can as to when I hear about games being postponed, changed, or other things like that. And just follow also on my X handle of Palmetto Base to find out what's going on. Let me know, Rudy Jones at PalmettoStateBaseball.com. Let me know what I can do better. I just want to try to be a service to college baseball fans in the state of South Carolina. For now, this is going to do it. Hope you enjoyed That Was the Week That Was for March 2nd through the 8th. For now, this is Rudy Jones saying good night and Jesus loves you.